Thanks for joining us for this episode of Black Health Matters St. Louis. You know what we try to do here. It's important for us to control what we can control.
Yes.
There's a lot of things that we cannot, but one thing we can do is claim our health. I'm on a personal mission to get people out and active. We know all the negative stats and stuff like that, and so we don't dive into that. We take a positive approach into how we can be healthier, live healthier, and live a higher quality of life. And so I'm trying to get you to join some of these movements of health, right? Get out and join some of these Black walk groups, Black run groups, Black bike groups. Today we're going to talk about Black mountain biking groups and crazy nutso folks. And I've got one of my favorite people here today. I can tell you the first time
oh my gosh,
this woman showed up almost to the day. So we've got this little thing we call Black People Bike.
Yes.
We get together every Sunday, and it was just a random kind of thing. You know, we're just jumping on some bikes on Sunday. Started out with just me, my wife, and a couple of her friends, 3-4 people. We rode a couple of Sundays. It got caught on. People started hearing about it, and I posted a video on Facebook, and the next Sunday, we got about 10 more people to come. Awesome. The next Sunday was 20 people. And before you know, we got a gang of people who keep showing up for this biking group. Really early on, we were taking a ride. I think this was maybe about a year and a half ago. And it was one of those early rides. It was still cold and nobody was really coming out. There were probably like 5 of us that were riding. And we got out on the Riverfront Trail somewhere out north. And the regulars were there. We pulled out, we diehards. It was going to be rainy, cold that day and windy. And there's a new car that shows up, Jeep, with this fancy bike on the back of it. As a matter of fact, I think you would park before us. We may have beat us to the spot.
Yeah, I'm one of those folks. When you say wheels down at 8 a.m., I'm like, wheels down at 8 a.m.
Man, this little woman jumps out ready to roll. I was like, who is this little yellow woman that got out of this Jeep, pulls this bike off? We jumped on those bikes and man, them legs were rolling on that bike. I was like, Angela is really that deal. She knows everything about biking. She was like, this is how you do this, is cases. And so we realized on that day that we were bikers and not cyclists. And so Angela's been teaching us about the world of cycling ever since. Thank you. We got Miss Angela Williams on today. What's up, lady?
Hi, everybody. I'm not sure what to think about that introduction. That is so sweet.
Yeah. I got one thing I want to use to introduce you though, because I think this really does capture it all. I found this. I said, boy, that really is that's Angela, the happiest realist who is joyfully, chronically disgruntled.
Yes. Is that my Facebook tag? Yeah.
Yes. Tell us about that.
Oh, wow. That is interesting you asked me about that. Okay. So it's so funny you described me the way you did. Like, cause I've always been awkward. I'm a super awkward person. I am an introvert at nature. And people are always like, you ain't an introvert? No, there's no way. I'm like, I'm a total introvert. Like, I'm gregariously introverted. I go social mode until I'm done, and then I shut it down. I'm probably at nauseum a realist. Like, I have just very, like, I tried to bring some optimism, but I usually have to go back to a realist. And I'm chronically disgruntled. My boyfriend or my best friend, if they're watching this, they'd be like, yeah, but they're the same, especially my best friend.
I get that all the way.
And it's not
your
a crap.
Joy is ever present, and your push to make things better is always there.
And in some level so here's the thing. Nobody who is comfortable changes anything, right? Change does not come from a position of comfort.
Yes.
Change in all of us only comes when we are at a place of discomfort. So I am somebody who welcomes discomfort into my life. I welcome being uncomfortable. I welcome not liking the position I'm in, because that's when, right, you say something's got to give, right? Depending on the pain, right? Like, I really think one of the biggest things in my life, and some of that quote on my Facebook page about me is, I am somebody who really has embraced the discomfort and sometimes pain of life. Whether it is on the bike, which is a different type of pain, which one of the reasons I like biking and climbing and these things is because they can be uncomfortable, right? And I, being a mental health specialist, think that, and just being a human being, just my life has taught me that sports are so important to me, and I think can be important to other people, because I say how somebody behaves in the moment of push, whether they're biking or playing soccer or football or tennis or climbing, that is a revelation of them. That is exactly, so if somebody if somebody's in pain on the bike and they are, they shut down, that's how that person handles discomfort in life. They shut down. If somebody is in pain climbing and they just need a break and they want to work through it, that's what they do, right? It's like, okay, if they become anxious on the wall, I'm like, you become anxious. So that's why I really embrace, like, this is hard, this is uncomfortable. Do I need to escape it? Is it actually bad? Are we getting in a situation that's not good? Because that's a good judgment call too, knowing when you need to exit, right? Or is this discomfort just something that I don't like right now?
Yeah.
And then what do I need to do to move through that? So I don't know. That's a long answer to my Facebook page, but that's me. Chronically disgruntled, chronically in like just what is happening, and chronically questioning is like me or the rest of society, and what should I do about it?
I like the chronic joyful piece of that.
Yes, I am joyful as well.
So, I'm a part of the experiential learning generation, right? That the best thing you can do is step out of the classroom and step into the experience. Right. And so that's kind of what we do in all of this biking, running, hiking stuff.
Right.
Is get people together. It's hard to keep a mask on when you're struggling breathing.
That's right. That's so funny, right? Like, so when you ride or you do things with people, you're like, okay, it all just falls away because they're being pushed, and that you just cannot maintain what I like to call people's representative.
That's right.
Too long. Right? You're just like, oh, that representative, like, oh, you were repping hard. And now it's like, ooh, this is real. It's like, yes, it is, And
I think that's the essence of like when we come together, like we've all become or created these communities. The one about biking in particular, the one that we share on Sundays, is that everybody says that this is such a beautiful community to join because there are no representatives.
Right.
It's just everybody, just real people. And you hear that so often, the word real, genuine. We like each other.
Right.
And I love it because that's a place that is sometimes hard to find for us, right? And so I want to spend some time talking about these various communities. But we were talking a little bit earlier about you finding your community. You said you described yourself as a Black biracial person.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So, so I am adopted. My adoptive family is they're whites, they're Caucasian folks, Catholic, very typical St. Louis, South County, woo, Oakville, Melville, rep hard, Afton, woo, area. So I have obviously kind of struggled with my racial identity my whole life, up until probably my 30s, actually. Not knowing from a very early age. I have a funny saying, like, white people, they know who's white and who's not. Do you know what I'm saying? So I used to tell my mom and dad, they're just like, well, they were well-meaning people that loved me and just didn't, they had no idea how to raise this child that they adopted. They were like, we just loved you so much and wanted you, and I said, it's interesting. I say, I probably grew up more Black in this all-white community than I would have anywhere else, because I knew the moment I hit school that I was different. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you were led to know, like, you can tell I look at me like I'm light, I'm light skinned, but when you go to school and, I have a big afro and my hair was, tight and curly, like those kids were like, who's this? So I struggled with that. I wanted my hair to be straight. When you're a kid, you just want to be like everybody else. Right. And my mom, bless her heart, I think like every day she combed my hair, it was like the scene from Color Purple. She's like got my head between, she's like this poor white with like a single tooth comb. I'm like, now I think back, like, what were you doing with like nothing? I'm like, you're hurting me, okay. So I just, over the years, I just really, have gone back and forth between who am I? And, I guess in high school, was the junior high was actually the first time I came across a Black woman. I was in junior high. It's the first time I had a relationship with a Black woman. It was a friend of my mother's, and she, from work, and my mom was struggling with my hair and was talking about it. And she said, I will come help you with her hair. Wow. And she came over, and I really wanted my hair at that time, perming your hair was huge. Mm-hmm. I really wanted my hair straightened, and she relaxed my hair, and you couldn't tell me nothing. I went outside in New Orleans, you couldn't tell me nothing, right? So I just back and forth, now I wear my hair natural, but, back and forth. So this is where I've come to, is really Black people, we're all very different looking, right? We look different ways. I can show you, I know people who are part of the Black community that straight hair, biracially Black, that just, but are like very much like, I identify, right? I am a part of the Black community. And all across the whole spectrum, right? Sure. Beautiful, dark, beautiful women and men, and children. So we're a spectrum of people. And what I realize is how I feel the most comfortable is that I am a biracial Black woman. So I still honor the fact that my mother is a white woman and my father is Black. But I'm not white and don't have a desire to be. Do you know what I'm saying? Have zero desire to be. I'm proud of who I am. And so I'm also proud of who raised me and who my mother was. So that's what has brought me here.
I appreciate that. That's such an education for me. It really is. And I want to lean into some of the work that you're doing. Like, you are a healthcare professional.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. But most people outside, like most people know you as the bike lady, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
right?
like Angela likes bikes. Yeah, like, right.
Yeah. And so tell us about, because we want to spend a little bit of time talking about this initiative, this thing that just happened in a few weeks ago that you were a part of.
Yeah.
Right? We got Black People Bike, but you're doing something a little bit beyond
I
biking.
don't know, it's beyond. It's just different.
It's beyond for me.
It's right. But that's the whole thing, right? It's always beyond until you're like, oh, it's just different. Until you get that exposure. So mountain biking. So, yes. Okay. So I by nature am just kind of an adventurous, all in. The injuries I had as a child, we won't get into them. Yeah. Kind of human being, right?
See, you say, as soon as you say mountain biking, you talk about injuries.
No, I'm sorry. No, hold on. Hold on. So I shouldn't, maybe that's the first thing I should mention.
No, that's exactly what I'm saying.
I guess what I'm saying is I just tend to seek out these kind of like things, these novel, okay. I guess would be some novel things, right? Uh-huh. So I also like to rock climb. I'd gotten a little bit hurt rock climbing, so was told, don't rock climb for a couple months, you need to heal this thing. I was like, fine. I was a little restless on my couch, and I had always been cycling. I got my first bike like 13 years ago. It was a road bike. And I was in like graduate school or school. And so I think I almost had a heart attack riding from Big Shark. So I bought it from the Big Shark that used to be on Del Mar.
Yeah.
Right.
That's where I got my first bike. Yeah.
And I lived in Clayton at the time, in the Moorlands, 2 miles away. I almost died in front of the WashU Danforth campus. Like a mile in, I was just like, I ain't gonna make it, you know? So that's where I started, right? To where I'm at now. So it's a progression. So I just rode recreationally. I was climbing a lot, got injured climbing, had to stop. And so I was like on the couch, like bored. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And then somebody gave me a gift certificate to a bike shop, a pretty decent gift certificate. So I went in and I was like, well, what happened before that is I could only hike. So I went hiking with some friends, and somebody came by us on a bike. On a trail.
Yeah.
In St. Louis. I was at Castlewood Park.
You were at Castlewood.
I was at Castlewood,
that,
I was on the Grote Peter, I think it's pronounced Grote Peter Trail. And to hike it at the time, I was like, what? I'm walking over all this stuff. And somebody took a bike down this stuff.
Yes.
And I was like, that is the best thing I've ever seen. I want to do that. How do we do that? And so I went and I said, hey, so they're like, well, don't go there right away. But they sold me a very entry-level mountain bike. And I'm telling you what, I rode that thing into the ground. I put it over at Castlewood on what we call the flats. Barely rode the flats, which barely changes. I mean, just a flat trail. Immediately fell a few times, but was fine. Yes. And I loved it. I thought it was the best thing ever.
But that's what may be holding some of us cyclists bike back a little bit. First time I went out, I had a friend I bought a mountain bike because it was all I knew. It was a bike. It was a mountain bike, had a shock on it. The guy said, hey, let's go mountain biking. And I was like, okay. We go out to Castlewood. I'm 5 seconds in, hit a log, flip over the handlebars, bam.
Yeah.
It's like getting punched by Mike Tyson. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm done. Like calling it.
But my ego wouldn't let it. So I get back on this thing and I'm riding, and it was scary. It was scary. So we're riding or whatever. That was the last time I went mountain biking.
Yep. So I think you're exactly right. Right. So one of the things about myself is, again, I am a kind of an introverted soloist. I will take this thing out to Castlewood on my own and kind of go to this flat area and start to adventure in, right? I also at the time did know people in biking, right? So I was able to ask some very specific questions. I think that is key. So mountain biking is just a form of cycling, actually. It's also a completely different discipline than road biking. Or gravel biking, actually. It's done on a completely different bike. I know we say any bikes for anywhere. That's actually, I have a saying that, there's a bike for very specific things. Like there's a different bike for different things. We can try to make that go as far as possible. But at some point, might have to get the bike that fits, because one of the things like mountain biking, if you do go on a bike that's not appropriate, you are not going to have a good time. It's going to be very scary. The other thing can happen is we often see people watch too much YouTube videos and they just see, people barreling. No, it's like the Red Bull, barrel's like, okay, stop. That's downhill insanity, right? You don't have to do that. Most people actually do not do that. And if you aren't with if the person you're with takes you is not skilled in bringing new people in, or doesn't remember. Often what happens is we get into a sport and we forget what it was like the first time we got on that. What was, day one at Castle in the Flats, there was like a little bump and I was like, can I go? I was like, so we forget what that feels like. And so really the key of getting anybody into a new sport, especially something like mountain biking, right, is to choose the terrain and the place appropriately.
Sure.
Right? Like, I like to do small wins and just say, just get the bike, right? Rent your bike, buy your first your first entry bike. Don't break the bank on your first, and just go out there with somebody that you trust And I say, you're on a win if you show up and you just put the
That's
bike
right.
on a little dirt.
That's right.
I don't care if we do a half a mile.
That's right.
Just so you'd be like, okay, I did that and I'm okay. It's like, you are okay. And tomorrow we'll do a mile. Yeah. And then, then you'll be like, we'll do 2 miles. And before you know it, you'll do this whole flat area. And then you know what? We'll talk about, and there are some things in mountain biking. There's some essentials that we need to talk about when we get on the bike, but they're very doable for anybody. It's very simple. And remember these few things and let's go ride our bikes.
That's the principle for almost everything.
Yes.
Right? You got to ease into it.
You got to ease folks into
It's best that you go with somebody.
Yes.
It's best if that somebody understands or remembers what it was like the first time.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Somebody can ease you into
these things.
These are the same principles of all of this stuff.
Yep.
What I love about this conversation about biking and exercise and fitness is that it's almost like a metaphor for life.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
There are 2 things I want you to talk about before we run out of time today. One is I want you to tell me a little bit about how do we begin to connect mountain biking, being out in places like NWA.
Yeah, Northwest Arkansas.
Right?
Yeah.
And what's the connection with Black folks in those spaces?
Yeah.
Right? So tell us about the connection between those things.
Yeah.
And then where do we go from here?
Oh, yeah. So that's a big one. So one thing that I think we need to start doing is showing more Black and brown faces on mountain bikes, which is why I loved Minority Mountain Bikers. Harry Hill, Minority Mountain Bikers, is becoming a national group, people all over. And so just showing those pictures of us and those pictures of us in NWA recently, Northwest Arkansas, riding on mountain bikes. So one is exposure. 2 is we have to just reframe our own thinking first. I think our community has a lot of "we don't do this" statements that
Say
really
that.
hold us. Our community,
we don't do
our
that.
community is the worst. I know a lot of fingers I get pointed at. I always say, you know what? I get the most girl, we don't do that. I'm like, we do that. We are doing that. Please stop saying we don't swim. Please stop saying we don't ski. There's whole black skiing groups. Like half the people that showed up at Minority Mountain Bikers, when they're not riding bikes down those mountains in the summer, they're skiing down them. Do you know what I mean? So please stop saying, so first is, I think we really have to start at home here in St. Louis, where we are locally. So first of all, we have a ton of mountain biking trail here. It is kept up by Gateway Off-Road cyclists. It's GORC. It is a org. I mean, really, it'd be great just to go help them trail build and see, these are the trails you walk and hike and people take horses on. It is Mountain Biking Association in this state that is keeping up those trails. Mostly, not all of them, but a lot of them, right? So it's that hard work. The next thing is, I really think just a little exposure, right? Showing, for instance, our bike rides on Sundays, right? Bringing a mountain bike, talking about that bike, it's not going to bite you, and it's fun. It looks different. We can get on that because honestly, a majority of African American cyclists are on road bikes. That's just the stats, right? It's because it's known. It's actually part of our history, right? Right.
Major Taylor,
yes. Right? We very much right here, right? We get it, right? But we don't see that with mountain biking, and so that still feels like we don't do that sport. But definitely, it's just another way to be on 2 wheels.
We still need a Tiger Woods of mountain biking,
right? And I'm telling you, but we can't get that, right? If we don't break down the barrier of we don't bike that way, right? Which is why NICA and getting the NICA scholarships out there for our youth is so important.
Yeah.
To get that exposure for them, and I'm not asking, you can race or not race, but just letting them know, there's this other thing. So the woods part, I think we're there's a cultural reason and historical reason why Black folks don't go in the backwoods. That's where a lot of stuff went down. And in Missouri, let's just be honest. I'll be straight up. There's some trails that I love that I go to, and I bike past. I drive past the house that has a Confederate flag hanging on the front. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I just say, my thing in life is you do you. I'm gonna do me. Mm-hmm. Let's just not have an issue with one another. I can tell you, I've never had an issue. Mm-hmm. I have to tell you, I've went very south in Missouri and done bike races, and I'm the only BIPOC person present, right? And I've never had an issue. I also know a lot of people in mountain biking. I also am very, I will say this too, for me personally, because I know somebody's thinking about it. I'm also very aware of the complexion of my skin as a person who identifies in the Black community, right? There's colorism, and I understand that I only get BIPOC about this close. You know what I'm saying? About this close. You're like, is that white? Okay. And no, she is not white. About right here, that happens, right? So, I understand that I've got some, that's the thing. It's the truth. But those are the ways we need to bridge that gap. We need more exposure. Mm-hmm. We need to just, for our group locally, just have a day, get to know it.
Sure.
Go someplace safe and reasonable, and just some people are like, I love it, and some people are like, it's not for me. But I don't think it's fair to say that until you try it. And then if you don't want to try it, that's fine too.
We were having this conversation, and you said something that I thought was awesome. You said that this is not something new for us. This is really a return to the land for us.
I do find it interesting, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, and this is something I heard echoed on a podcast. They were talking about Black health and Black community and sport and mountain biking. And I cannot remember who it was. I wish I could, give them credit, but that was the conversation. And I happened to be in Chicago at the time, driving around, and they were just talking about like, we've really become disconnected from the land and in the woods. And while there are things that happened in these areas that are tragedies, right? Historically, there are also, it's really, I think any historical tragedy is hard to be separated from historical roots, right? While there are things, like we can admit, like these are tragedies and travesties against our community, it's also sharecropping and even slavery in some ways, and these things we experience are also where some of our cultural roots came from. The food, right? Family, how we feel about family, how we extend our families, right? Our birth from the South and from these roots. And it's like anything terrible and bad also has a connection. And so as we moved out of slavery, right, and became sharecroppers, then we were farmers. Like there was land, and so we are a people of natural food and growing our own food and movement and hard work. Like that's who we are. And then over time, through different processes like, the Civil War, and fleeing the South, we migrated, rightfully so, historically to the North to escape and to fight for the North, right? In exchange for freedom, right? And so we've landed, then the North is the North. It's cities, it's big cities. We're all the big cities. So we were urbanized in that way. And so we have forgotten. Yeah. And it's a reason why I personally still love going to the South. Because when you go to the South, whether it's New Orleans or Mississippi, we're not going to get into that. I understand what history was and is. I understand what some of it still can be. But when you go there, you are still feel a little like this is a little connection of our U.S. historical roots. Like this is where almost all of our ancestors are from in this country, right? Our American ancestors, right? This is where they're from, right? In the South. So there is a little connection in that, and it does feel like they do. I feel like in the Southern, in Arkansas, in these states, have a connection really to their land and their natural resources, and they really do value like this outdoor. It's ours too, and I'm talking about the Black community, right? Like these resources are ours too, and I really felt that in Arkansas, in that Northwest Arkansas area. Like, there are a lot of Black faces in Northwest Arkansas, and I mean, like, and coming from transplant, some people have been there forever. Some people are like moving from Colorado, Utah, California, and love it there. I think we have the capability to have some of that here. Because we do have good trails here.
I was listening to Harry Hill and some of the stuff that he's doing. He's actually from Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And this is the second time that you guys have sort of organized this experience in Northwest Arkansas.
Yeah.
And you described it as the Moab of the Midwest.
Yeah. So I've been going down to Northwest Arkansas for a couple years now, because if you were a St. Louis area mountain biker, slam, or you bike in the St. Louis area, you know about Northwest Arkansas and everything that goes on, because we watch trail builds, like they're building a new trail, so when Northwest Arkansas, when the Waltons, so a little history, the Waltons, Walmart, they are single-handedly responsible financially for funding all of the trail in Northwest Arkansas.
Wow.
The Walton Foundation has done that. So for all the things you can think about Walmart, you can't deny the fact, right? And with that, tourism has just gone through the roof, and an influx of people have moved to this area to experience the outdoor resources that they've brought together. So we've been going down there in St. Louis for a while, because to go to Moab, you have to fly your bike, you have to do all these things, you have to rent a bike. So it's like you just go down there and there's all this trail, right? Love Moab, nothing gets you. Still go out there, love Colorado, love all those places. But this has become an easy go-to. I recently heard about minority mountain bikers. So I went to Bentonville and saw a friend of mine that's pretty active in the BIPOC community down there. And she had mentioned like, hey, are you coming for this minority mountain bikers? I'm like, say what? What you say? Say it again. She said, minority mountain bikers. I said, so like a lot of minority folks on mountain bikes? She's like, yes. And I was like, I was not, but I will be. So Harry Hill is the founder and the owner of this group. And this is their second year at Bentonville. I just joined this year. It was a totally new experience for me. And I tell you, I was like, it's almost a little emotional. Like I had never seen that many Black folks and brown folks on mountain bikes. Like, you're like, it was another thing. I'm like, I found my people. Do you know? And let me say this. I ride with anybody. I have to. You have to.
Sure.
If I was in St. Louis, it was like, you wouldn't ride with nobody.
That's right.
Right? So you want to be on two wheels. You ride a bike, the old saying, you ride a bike, I ride a bike. We should ride bikes together,
we
right?
Ride bikes together.
We ride bikes together.
Yeah.
I think you can solve a lot of world problems by not talking about politics and just shutting up and riding bikes together.
And I think it should be said, I'm so glad you brought that point up. Like we like riding, but what we do is we ride with lots of folks, but we have to have groups like minority mountain bikers and Black people bike to center Black people for those. They are not, we don't segregate, discriminate.
Right.
Everybody's welcome to join. But what we understand is that we have to consciously and intentionally create spaces where we center the health and well-being of Black folks. Otherwise, they'll get lost in the shuffle.
Right. Because it is our responsibility as people in the community to do that. Yeah. Right? If you have a platform to do that. And it's so funny because I don't think any group that is BIPOC, Black, whether it's Latino or Black or whatever, centered, has not taken flack for this, right? Well, why can't you just ride with people and be like, I hear what you're saying and I hear you and I get it, but you don't understand what we're trying to say, right? Yeah. We're not saying that we can't all ride together. Nobody's saying that. That's ridiculous. Actually, we all ride together by default because you outnumber us 50-1 on bikes. And by you, I mean Caucasian people outnumber minorities on bikes. Probably almost 50-1 is the last number I saw, right? So So first of all, stop, right? Second of all, I say, I ride white people bike all the time. I go to, and I've never complained, right? And don't complain and don't want to complain and actually enjoy these human beings. These are great people. They're single-handedly responsible for a lot of the education I have, right? But now I am going to be unapologetic by giving that information back to my community, right? And if you're a good person and with good intentions, that's what you would want me to do. So unapologetically minority focused, equally inclusive and welcoming to all,
Love
right?
But
right. Won't apologize to anybody for giving back to help lift up and empower my own community. I'm not going to apologize for that. Right. Do you know what I'm saying? Right. So,
and I think that most of the folks in the community understand that. TrailNet has been so welcoming and inclusive. They actually promote, minority biking because they realize in the city of St. Louis, we've got to cut down the number of folks driving and hogging these streets and the pollution, everything. Absolutely. And that includes everybody.
I think the naysayers are far and few between. Yeah. I just think they suck the oxygen out of the room sometimes. And so we really have to learn to be like, I hear you. Yeah. Thanks for your opinion. Good. Wish you could, but absolutely. That's the other thing about getting into mountain biking or biking is I just want people to know, the people who are active in mountain biking are also very supportive of this movement, right? Of brown faces on mountain bikes. How can we help? How can we help? The pandemic was a real hurt for everybody. There is a shortage of mountain bike rentals because I think what I understand, I don't know for a fact, is maybe a lot of the shops either sold off their fleets or down in bikes. That is coming back, I think. So I'm really hopeful that we'll be able to have more opportunities to work with local shops and ask for rentals or rental discounts to get people to, because it's really hard. Again, you have to have the bike, right? That's right. And I'm not going to ask, or nobody would ask anybody to go purchase a bike they're not sure they're going to keep forever, right?
All right. So do me a favor as we wrap up. Tell me, give me what should people be doing right now? There are a couple of things that are coming up that we want to tell people about. Of course, every Sunday they can come out and ride with Black People Bike. Yes. The 28th of April, the folks over at TrailNet are having an awesome event to sort of celebrate all the new things that are happening in St. Louis, new trails and new opportunities to get engaged. What is that? What do you want to advertise right now?
So everything you said, plus one local bike shops and clubs I'm really involved with. Southside Cyclery, Deanna and Tim have been great. They sell all kinds of bikes. They definitely have some mountain bikes. I definitely think it's a shop that eventually someday we could work with getting some, rentals that have been very, very supportive of this type of discussions. Yeah. We do have a local picnic coming up for the Southside Cycling Club. It's, this weekend. People are more than welcome to come out to Cliff Cave Park. If we have any extra mountain bikes around, we would love to that's a very entry-level trail. I would say I'm going to be on the lookout for some beginner type of mountain bike rides and kind of learning, even looking into it myself to maybe how can I get some people in community. There's great people out there like Carrie Cash and these are just random names of people I think about. Mary Piper, some people. Those are the women that taught me how to mountain bike.
That's great.
That I think that would be great. And can we get these guys, Deanna, Tim to come together and how do we just do a little, I think it starts with a little almost field talk. We're not even going to ride today. We're just going to get some mountain bikes out and take a look at them. We're going to ease into it. So I think look for that because that's something that I would really like to see happen for Black People Bike STL. And I would love, we have got to join Harry and Minority Mountain Bikers next year in Bentonville because they have an excellent rental program going on where, those shops down there, they are on board. The whole, actually, at Visit Bentonville is on board. They whatever they can do to keep this going, they're going to keep this going. So I think we have to go down there next year.
We're doing it. But you got to get us ready, right?
We got to get us ready.
We'll go through the whole training and development. Ease us into it. That's great.
I mean, before you know it, we have to run like a mountain biking group and a road cycling group on Sunday. We watch out. Yeah, it's coming.
Well, listen, Angela, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for joining in.
Thank you.
There's no coincidence that both of us are in healthcare. You're doing some really great work with our young people in this region.
Thank you.
We both are trying to get people healthy and well in every way that we possibly can. Yeah. We don't need as many meds as we think we do.
Yeah, this is true. We can do some things.
We can do some stuff, right, for our mental health, our well-being, stuff that's in control. So we're asking you to get engaged, get in where you can fit in. Join some of this movement that's happening. Your health matters. Black health matters.
Absolutely.
And Black Health Matters St. Louis. Thanks for joining us this week. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Angela.
Thanks.
We'll see you soon.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Yeah,
you are awesome, lady.